You should be able to see my PowerPoint. You see that it says how to double your close rate. You guys see that? No?
Yes. Good
yes?
to go.
Marty says no. Marty's messing. Marty's a kidder. I got to watch out for this guy.
Yes. You'll get some number.
All right. Now I'm scared. But cool. Okay. Sweet. Let's do this. Let me just kind of walk through this. I'm going to kind of go through a few things for you because I want to share some of the things that I've learned over the years. First, who is this guy you're talking to? My name's Matt. Like I mentioned, I'm in Arizona, by the way, so that's why I'm trying to look as cool as possible in the desert there. It was actually a cold day, by the way, when we went out and did this, but I'm a family guy first and foremost. Beautiful wife, 2 awesome girls that keep me on my toes, that's for sure. And I really love spending time with them. And I've been in growth and sales and SaaS and really marketing and all that fun stuff for about 15 years or so. Started a few companies, got lucky with a few of them, didn't get lucky with a couple of them, and fortunate enough to have a couple of exits over that time. I've run thousands of software demos. I've run thousands of sales calls, person to person. I've run thousands of in-person meetings. I've also coached people on these sales calls, and that's kind of where my alignment has gone, is sales and sales calls in particular, because I found out that I sucked at sales calls initially, and I also saw that a lot of other people struggle with it. So I really focused on learning and growing and trying to get much better at my sales calls, at what I could do to improve. And it worked. We started to see some amazing close rates. We started to see some positive things happening. And I was able to show other people how to do the same. And so my personal why is I love it when I can show somebody something and I can say, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you tweak this, change this, put this in your process, or start doing this, or say this. And they go off and do it. And then they come back to me and they say, Matt, that was amazing. I just got an email last week, actually, from one of my clients, Brian. And he went from a close rate of 11% of all of his sales calls that he did, 11% of them he closed, and he went to 42% in 2 months because he followed what I have learned over the years. So he still wants more. I love it. He's like still getting after it. But to go from that kind of 11% close rate, which is you're struggling at that time, to 42%, that's the stuff I live for. And when he says you just changed our entire trajectory of our company, that's super cool. And as Mike said, I'm both a coach and I run a SaaS company, Ringbot. Ringbot is a tool that marketing agencies use. It allows them to connect with their clients better. It allows them to give the tool to their clients. Also, a lot of our clients are agencies who just give the tool or charge their clients for the tool. You can resell it, you white label it. It's really slick. But I want to take you back. So we're going to go in the Wayback Machine. When I launched my first company, I was so excited. I'm like, we got a great product. It's so amazing. Everybody's going to love it. And we launched it, and I'm like, okay, I can't wait. All the orders are going to start coming in, right? Ooh, let's just watch the cash register. Nope, nobody signed up that first month. That's okay, because month 2, nope, nothing in month 2. But third time is the charm for some people, but not me. Fortunately, no, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months went by and nobody signed up. And I'm like, what is going on? And I mean, we're talking serious ego check. I thought I was cool at the time. Definitely learned I wasn't. And it was a real struggle. 8 months. We thought this was going to be the next best thing in this industry, and nobody was signing up. Fortunately, month 9, we did get 4 signups in that month. We finally got a few people to do it. And woo, we were so rich that we made $347. So it definitely was not an overnight success. This took quite a while. In fact, it was a struggle. Here's kind of our growth chart over the months of getting started and the years eventually. Is there was no like crazy jump or anything like that. It was a lot of work and a lot of struggle. And we were kind of in one of those situations where like, should we just pack this up? Like, there's a lot of work for what we're actually getting out of it. But fortunately, I discovered a secret formula. And that secret formula I discovered right here. And you're like, well, Matt, that secret formula is not so cool. Like, I can see that the growth never really went much bigger than that. Well, I'm sorry, I actually kind of lied to you. So once I discovered the secret formula, we put it in place, that's what the growth looked like. We hockey sticked up. And just to look back and think of the amount of difference that we could have had, or we have there, if we would have stayed on that trajectory that we were on, compared to where we went because we plugged in this formula, is incredible. That's an amazing amount. And fortunately, This let us take off. We started to have exponential growth. We had all the leads we could want. We were closing a ton of leads, and we exited that company for quite a lot of money. And then there's a Scrooge McDuck. That's kind of what we were doing. I said, okay, well, maybe it was just a flash in the pan. Maybe we were lucky. Well, I took the same formula, started a new company, new product, new industry, totally new market. And again, we had a nice exit. And so I realized this is really, really important stuff. And I said, why don't I share this? Because at the time, as I was starting to get out of my last company, I had a few of my friends were like, hey, looks like it's going pretty well. Can you just share with me what you did? And so I would give them some of the secrets. And I'd say, hey, do this. And they would take it and run with it. I'm like, awesome. And I got a lot of joy of seeing them grow from that. And so I realized through this process that it's so important to have an amazing, if you're a product, a demo, or if you are a service, a sales call. That process of that big step of talking to your buyers, I realized is the most important thing. And I saw it myself in our sales processes and the companies I was in. And then also I kind of wanted to validate it. So I have a podcast, and on my podcast, I had a guy named Chad Stewart. And Chad Stewart is a professional buyer. All he does is he goes out and buys things for big companies. They hire him. He goes out and purchases these things. So obviously, sometimes purchasing processes for big companies is really long and annoying. He simplifies that. They hire him. He goes and does it. And I asked him, I go, Chad, I want to know, because this is what I think, but you tell me, what is the most important part when you're out there buying for your clients? What really gets it for you and your clients? And he said, the number one most important factor for my clients when making decisions is the demo or the sales call. It has got to be great. So if you are going to have a process where you're going to try and close people and you don't have a formula for actually getting people crazy emotional while you're on that call, you're lost. He says if he looks at 3, 4, 5 different products and wants to compare them, they all kind of look the same. And this is very common. By the way, you don't trust me? Go search for a CRM right now. Like all these CRMs say they do this, and they do that, and they do that. I just went through a CRM buying process. It's annoying. Trust me. You've got to separate. To the buyer, everybody looks the same. If you're an agency, you say, oh, we do awesome SEO. It's amazing. Okay, everybody says that. Everybody says they're going to get you ranked. Everybody says they're going to get you clicks. They're going to get you views. You've got to figure out how are we separating. And so what I had to learn, because my product kind of looked the same from the outside to everybody else, I had to learn that the difference is actually process. It's not your service. It's not the product. It's the process. And so I said, okay, well, how do I create a process? Because I didn't know a process. And so I said, well, let me just figure out what I can learn. I looked at all kinds of videos. I read books. I went to speakers who were speaking about good sales processes. I read articles. I even talked to some mentors. And so from all of that, I kind of had to take pieces from each and I kind of put it all together. But then I realized I got to make this work. And so fortunately, I was able to make it work. And that's the formula. That's the process that I came up with. And it's called the perfect deal process. And you can see D.E.A.L is big there. That's because it's an acronym. So what does it mean? Number one, discover. We have to learn about our buyer. And too many times people get into a conversation and they don't learn enough about their buyer. They just think, oh, you want Facebook ads? Awesome. Let me just tell you about how we do ads. But you don't understand why they want the ads and what are they trying to accomplish and where are they trying to get to. And so we need to be better about discovering. We're going to dive into this more. Next is educate. Once you've learned a bit about your prospect, we need to educate them. Prospects want to be educated. They need to be educated. And so we've got to do that. And we've got that as part of the process. From there, we can associate. And what that means is we need to associate our services or our solution to their problems, to what they are dealing with. And so if they say, I need Facebook ads, but you actually were smart and you dove in and you said, oh, what are your goals for this? Oh, we need to get this many leads. We need to get this much revenue growth. Now you can show how you can accomplish that. You can associate what you can do to that. And lastly, we have lead. And that doesn't mean generate leads. It means take the lead, take charge. You need to be the one in control of the process and in control of each sales call. We're going to dive into this as well. Anybody have any questions so far, by the way? Okay, awesome.
Yes, I think I understand the associate part of the acronym. You're saying that you have to associate yourself with other bigger brands that are doing better than you. Could you expound on that a little bit, please?
No, I probably explained that really poorly. So associate means associate your solution and how you get results to their problems. So take what you do, the actual service you provide and the way you do it and your methods and your process, and connect it to what their problems are. So if they say, hey, we're just not getting ranked. Okay. If you're an SEO provider, SEO agency, we're not getting ranked. So you need to figure out, okay, well, what are you trying to get ranked on? Where do you want to hit? Who are you trying to get to? Now what you can do is associate your process. Oh, we've got a method. We identify your perfect buyer and we make sure to come up with the best long tail keywords. And we do this and this and this. You want to connect that to their situation. Does that make sense, Andrew?
How it differs from your competitors.
Yes, absolutely.
Out.
Yeah, absolutely. Separating from competitors is always important. And that's part of this. But really what you want to do, and you don't really need to talk about your competitors too much, because if you are able to associate what you're doing to them, then they won't be thinking about competitors. Because remember, a lot of the differentiation is this process. If you're doing these types of things and getting this deep with them and this personalized, this customized, they're going to love you because nobody else has done that. Everybody else just said, we're going to write some articles for you and hopefully they rank. You're getting deep, and that's the difference. And so you won't really need to dive in too much to competitors. If you do, there are tactics. We go over that in some of our courses.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions at this point? Okay, cool. Is there a chat? I'm sorry, I'm not good at Teams at all.
Yeah, there's a chat.
I have no idea where I don't even know how to open it. I'm sorry. Show conversation. There we go. Okay, cool. If you guys ever have, now I see the chat. So if you guys ever have any questions, you want to just fire that into the chat, definitely do so. Okay, cool. Let's roll. Now I want to tell you why this process works and why I know it works. But let's start with this guy I know, Colin. When Colin came to me, he was this young, just out of college guy. He didn't have any recognizable skills, but he was smart, he was motivated, and he wanted to make things happen. So he said, hey, can you show me what you're doing? And so I trained him on this process. I said, hey, here's how you do it. Here's how you discover, educate, associate, lead. I walked through each step with him. He put it in place and he executed it so well. He started to learn it, started to fix the things he wasn't doing well. He was accentuating the things he was doing well, and he started to see some really great results. And what Colin said, Matt turned me into an incredible closer within a few months. I was able to close over 63% of my demos working with his process. It was pretty cool to see what he'd done. Now, Colin has a beautiful wife. They travel the world. There they are in like Greece or Hawaii there, and he's living an amazing life. So once you understand how to close deals, it starts working insanely well and your business just takes off. This works, by the way, for any type of business. I learned it in software. I applied it to other industries. I applied it to another one of my business, applied it to another one, and it worked all over the place in any type of business. And I mean, I'm talking, this is Paul. He's in the UK. He went from a 26% to 87% close rate in 3 months. This is Camille, actually. He's in France. He went from 5% to 60%. This is Josh. He has an agency in Canada. I think it's Ontario. So not sure. You mentioned somebody else in Canada. I think it's Brent. But he went on a 760% increase in closed deals. And this is Artem, who is a Russian immigrant. He's in the US, but he's a Russian immigrant. He was so worried he wouldn't be able to sell to people because of his accent. He went crazy. Doubles his close rates. Now he's got all kinds of meetings. It works. But how? So let's talk about this. Now, the perfect deal process, I laid it out for you. But the big thing is, something to make sure we think about is that it's focused on the prospect the entire time. We're focused on them. And so if somebody came to you and said, hey, I need Facebook ads. You say, okay, let me just show you all the ads we do. And this is cool. Look at this cool stuff. And everybody loves us for our ads. That's focused on you. It's not focused on them. We need to focus on them and their problem and their situation, what they're striving for, what keeps them up at night. That's the difference. Let's dive into each of these things, okay? Number one, discover. Discover is the first step. And there are 4 reasons to do discovery. Now, when I say discovery, some people might have heard the term qualification when you hear about sales things. They might have heard the term needs analysis to learn about the different needs of your buyers. All those different things are the same kind of idea. I call it discovery. And discovery is where you understand a few things. Now, what are those 4 reasons? First, I will share with you that most people, even experienced sellers, people who've done it a long time and that's all they do is sell, only think that there's one reason. They only think there's one reason for doing discovery. What is that? Why should you do discovery?
Not waste time with unqualified buyers.
Qualify.
Great.
Yeah.
I love it. To find a fit, we've got to be able to find a fit. Are they going to work for us? Right? We got to understand their pain, their goals, their timing. If there's somebody we actually want to work with and talk to. Now, most people stop there. Most people think that's all that it's for. And they say, okay, we're done here. But the problem is there's 3 more reasons to do it. And those 3 other reasons actually get you more closed deals. So you can close more deals in discovery. Now, I apologize. My housekeepers are here today and they're vacuuming. So if you guys hear like all kinds of crazy backroom noise, my fault. Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we're good. All
Okay,
good.
cool.
Yeah, Teams is a lot better than Zoom on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
good to know. Okay, sweet. All right. So the other ways, number 2, to connect personally. Now, through the process of this discovery, you can connect with your buyers. And that happens the way you ask the questions and the types of questions you ask. Okay. But why do we do this? Well, we're 5 times more likely to close if we can get them to connect with us. 243% increase in closed deals. So that's a ton of cash coming to us. This is all from Reachable, by the way. And what this means is if you can connect with your buyer, that means they get you and they realize that you get them, you understand them. And so if you are, let's say you're selling to basket weavers, that's your market, and that's who you target. Well, if you were a basket weaver, then you can share some of those experiences, some of the backgrounds, and they'll see that you understand what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. So it's really important. You can see it increase a lot of revenue and deals. You also, number 3, want to establish trust. Trust is big in the sales process. You need to show them that you know what you're talking about. They've got to understand that you totally get what you're doing. Now, a lot of people think this means you have to share all of your experience. You don't. By the way you ask questions and the way you jump into some of the answers and you go deeper and you kind of look at this and you ask them about this, they will see that you are an expert, right? If a Facebook ads person comes to me and they start saying, hey, tell me what your ROAS is. Tell me what your CPC is. Tell me what's this? What's this? They go into all these things that I don't even know. I'll be like, whoa, this person's legit. And especially if they're like, hey, what we try to aim for is this. We want to make sure if you're below this, that's a problem. We got to fix that. I'll be like, well, this person absolutely knows what they're talking about, even though they haven't said anything about their process or service or anything. So you can establish that trust really quickly. Andrew's asking, does the entire deal process happen on the first intro call and expand through follow-up calls, or is it split into a call-by-call frame? The answer is maybe. Depends on how you do your process. You can split the discovery into its own call and then have the rest of the sales process after. You can have another call to kind of sell them and close them. The reason you might do that is if you do a lot of cold outreach, it might be easier to sell just a 10-minute quick chat, just kind of 10-minute quick intro, than it would an entire like hour-long sales call. If you have people that are constantly not a fit, then you might want a 10-minute discovery because you can say, oh, you're not a fit, bye. So it really depends on your process and the way things are with your market, Andrew. Good question. The 4th reason, which is the most powerful, the one that actually gets the most results, but people actually forget the most also, is if you do a great discovery, you can get them emotional and you can get them feeling pain. The problem is a lot of prospects we see don't feel pain. However, most people will say, well, let me just try and push through that. If they don't feel the pain, they're not going to take action. In fact, there are 3 levels of people who sell, and I've talked with thousands of people who are trying to sell and help them out. There's 3 levels that I've seen. Number 1 is the entry level. Somebody who's just kind of getting into it, hasn't really learned the right processes. They have a really hard time making it happen. They fall on their face quite a bit. It's really difficult to sell if you're not quite sure exactly the right formula or process or way of doing things. But eventually, some of them figure out, or they talk to a mentor or a coach and they learn the right ways. And those people can start to make things happen. They're able to get across the line. But what we found is that there's a certain level above that, and those are experts. Experts really understand not only that you need pain, but how to get pain, how to make the pain deeper, how to really get the buyer feeling emotional. So they say, I've got to have this right now. Why have I not done it yet? And those experts who know how to do that, they fly, and they fly above everybody else. And it's so fun to watch them. That's what I'm going to show you how to do right now, because in pain, there are 3 steps that we need. Okay. Now I call this my knife analogy. It's a little gruesome, so I apologize for that, but there's 3 steps to pain. Number 1, we need to identify the true pain. And this is really important. Sometimes people will come to you and they'll say, hey, my shoulder hurts. Okay, they're not really saying that. You're not a doctor. But if you're an SEO agency, hey, we're not ranking. Okay, they might think that that's their problem. However, you're the expert. You might understand by talking with them and asking questions what's really going on. And you might find out that there's another more massive problem that's killing them, but they have no idea. Now, some people will just say, okay, let's fix the shoulder, but don't do that. As an expert, you should identify what the true pain is. And so in this case, they might say, my shoulder hurts, but you look at them because you're an expert and you see that they have a knife in their gut. You're like, whoa, shoulder doesn't look great, but the knife, that's going to kill you eventually. And so be that expert, identify that pain. But the second step is make sure they identify it. Don't just say, okay, well, they probably get it. I'm sure they know there's a knife there. A lot of them don't. A lot of your prospects have no idea that they've got this major problem. Be the expert and tell them. So we need them to identify that that's a problem. Now, most people who are good salespeople stop there. They say, okay, they got it. They identified, they saw it. Let's roll. The problem is if they don't realize that it's a major issue, that's a big thing, they're not going to change. Okay. So we need to go through step 3. Now, in order to explain how to do step 3, I'm going to go way back. My dad made me watch this movie, Lawrence of Arabia. I was like 10. It's this super long, crazy movie. Somebody else is laughing because they know it. And at 10 years old, I'm like, this is boring and long and horrible. It won the Academy Award in like the 60s or something. I now love the movie, by the way, for the record. But anyway, it's about this guy, Lawrence, who's from England, goes to Arabia. That's not the point of this. The point is, at one point in the story, Lawrence lights a match, looks at it, and he's in front of his buddies, and he just goes and puts the match out with his fingers. And one of his friends goes, whoa, how can you do that? Didn't that hurt? And he goes, well, of course it hurt. The trick is not minding the hurt. And that's my worst English accent and also the best. That's all I got. But anyway, your prospects are like that. They might know that something is bad and that it hurts, but they choose to ignore it. They choose to push it to the back burner. They don't really deal with it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Logan. I appreciate it. He's on my fan club. So they deal with it. And so we don't want them just to deal with it, right? Your prospects know they have pain. Okay. Once they've identified it, they might get it. Yeah, I know there's a knife there. It's fine. They deal with it, right? Just like the knight in Monty Python, right? Holy Grail. He gets his arm cut off. Like his arm is off. He's like, okay, I'm just going to move on now. The white knight. He goes, no, we're still fine. Like, dude, you have an arm cut off. You're not good. They think it's okay, even though there's seriously problems there. We need to be the ones to make sure they understand how bad the problems are. No one else will tell them. Okay. So this is where the struggle is. Now, what do you do when someone feels pain? They've got that knife in their gut. Now, most people, once they say, oh, they identified it. Now I'm going to solve it. I'll pull it out. I'll tell them all the cool things we're going to do for them on SEO, on a Facebook ad, and we're going to pull it out and they're going to be good to go. No, because if you're doing that, they haven't realized how bad it is yet. And until they realize how bad it is, they'll just be like, oh, cool. That's all. Thanks. Appreciate that. They didn't know it was a serious thing, that they were going to die from it. Until they realize how bad it is, they won't fix it. I have another analogy. It's an alcoholic analogy. I apologize. I know that it might bring up some bad thoughts for some people who've had alcoholics experience. It's the only way I really understand how to share this. If you've ever known an alcoholic, you realize that it's bad, and you try and tell them, hey, let's get you some help. Let's fix this. And they say, no, I'm fine. I can do it myself. I can fix it. And they keep saying, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And eventually they only change once they hit rock bottom. That's what we need to do with our prospects. If you keep saying, hey, you need to fix this, like, no, it's fine. I'm sure we'll start ranking soon. No, you won't. Like, you're doing the wrong stuff, right? Until they realize how bad it is, they won't take the steps to change it. They'll think they're fine. Okay. So A normal person at this point, if they say, oh yeah, I see the knife, they'll just pull the knife out and they'll start talking about all their systems and services and the way they do things. We don't want to be normal. Don't be normal. Be sadistic. What we want to do, twist the knife. Okay. Now, again, people have come to me and said, Matt, you are everything that makes sales bad. This is why people hate sales. It's not a real analogy. Okay. We don't really want to knife our prospects. Please don't do that. What we want to do is make sure they understand how bad their own problem is. We're not making their problem worse. We're not making them worse. We're making them realize how bad it is. And a lot of times they don't know how bad it is. They don't realize that it's a serious situation until you help them understand, because you're an expert and you've talked to lots of people like this and you know what good looks like. Okay, so we need to twist the knife. Now, we'll get back to this, but I want to share, there's another analogy that a lot of sales trainers use for kind of a similar thing. They call it stretching the gap. And what it means is your buyer, your potential client, is on one side of a ravine. Okay, they're standing on the cliff and they might say, hey, I do need these Facebook ads, but I could probably figure it out myself. If I run all the way back there and I take a long run and jump, I'll probably get to the other side and we'll be fine. We really don't need you. And so what we want to do is stretch the gap. We want to make sure they understand, actually, that's a pretty far jump. You're not going to make it on your own. You need us to be the ones to get you there. We're your bridge to get you to your goals, right? And that's nice. But the problem with selling on goals is that goals are good, but pain is better, okay? For you and for them. We want them to feel the pain, because if they don't feel the pain, they're not going to really make a switch. And this all goes to the psychology of loss aversion. You guys didn't realize you were going to learn psychology today. But the pain of losing is I can't even say it, psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining, which means that people will take more action for things that they are losing than things that they might potentially gain. It's really important. And that's why twisting the knife is good. We need them to identify that they have pain. We need them to make sure that they see it, that they get it. And we really want to make sure that they feel their pain and they feel it badly. If they don't, they'll never, ever fix it. Okay, so we need to twist the knife. How do we do that? Well, when they say, yeah, we're doing this and it's kind of taking us some time. I'm trying to figure out SEO on my own. I'm trying to figure out Facebook ads. Oh, what does that cost you? How much time have you spent? How much money have you spent on that? How much effort have you put into it? Right? What about how have you personally been affected by this? Does that mean you've been working late and you haven't been home? You haven't seen your kids? You haven't seen your wife? You've been late to dinner? Where'd you be if this wasn't a problem? Right? What else could you be solving? And my personal favorite is figure out their exact loss. Okay, tell me, how long have you really spent on this? It's been 2 months. And how much every day? 2 hours a day you've been spending on your ads and you're not getting any results. So first of all, let's figure out the ad issue, how much you spent on those, and how much time you spent. Let's put it all together. You've lost $23,500. Is that what you're telling me? And so be that person that calculates this for them and be the guy, be a consultant to show them you've lost a ton of money. Are you really willing to consider continuing that? And once they realize, whoa, I didn't even put it all together. When you add my time, you add the money that we spent, that's a lot of money. Plus the opportunity of not getting any new leads during that time. So really break it down for them and dive in instead of just, oh, they have a problem. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Figure it out, twist the knife. Okay. This is really, really important because only once you've done this and only once you've twisted the knife will they realize that they have a problem. And that's when you can pull the knife out in your sales call. Once you get to that part where you're demonstrating your services, where you're selling your services, that's when you pull the knife out and they're going to love you. Okay. So it's really important here in Discovery. I spent a lot of time on this because it's really foundational. Other things in Discovery to know. Most people don't ask enough questions. Most people ask 2 or 3 questions, they're done. Really about 8 to 11 questions is what the studies show. We want to make sure we really get enough out of them so that we are good to go. We want to learn about our prospect and understand them. Have a list of questions ready. You should have questions already that you want to learn about your prospects and then go deep. Just don't go down the questions. We also want to make sure we get exact pain and goals. Okay, I want to pause there. Any questions here, guys? Any thoughts around what we've just talked about?
They're sadistic. Wow.
I know.
I
I'm
invited
sorry.
this
You
guy
had no
here.
idea, Mike.
Jeez.
I know. Mike's like, oh man, he's really telling. No, but what questions you guys have?
Great imagery, by the way. Definitely going to be memorable.
Thank you. We good? You guys ready for
Andrew,
Andrew has a
go for
question.
it.
As always, I have a question.
Go
For
for
sure.
it, man.
I'm trying to see how I can apply this to an automated structure. Is this best suitable for an automated structure or a one-on-one kind of call?
It's best suitable for one-on-one, but you can apply this if you have a funnel. Absolutely, you should be identifying their problem. If you know your market, you should be calling out the problem on your funnel or your website. You should be making sure they understand it, making sure they're realizing how much they're missing out on, what they're losing by not having a solution, and then figuring out how to get them to convert based on that. So the way I've explained it is designed for a one-on-one interaction, or you can do this over a group call, by the way. But you can do this absolutely through other copy. Other questions? All right. Well, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. Let's roll. Let's get into step 2. Step 2 is educate. Now, a lot of people are like, wait, hold on. So we just did discovery. We learned about them. Don't we just start selling? Actually, there's reasons why we want to do educate at this point. Right after discovery, if you can start to educate them, it's really, really good. There's 3 reasons for doing this. 3 reasons for our purposes in the sales call. There's also other reasons for doing it. But number 1 is to build trust. So if you just get done with discovery, you're like, okay, well, I have some ideas. They're like, okay, they're going to start selling. And I have something that I explain to my clients called a sales wall. And you might know what I'm talking about. It's where people who are buyers and they get into a conversation, they kind of put up this wall, right? Like, oh, I want to make sure they don't use any tactics on me to sell me and close me hard. And so they kind of put up this wall. And so after discovery, like, okay, here we go. Sales coming, sales coming. And you start educating them. And you start sharing things that are happening in their industry that they may not know about. Like, oh wait, you're telling me something? Oh, okay, cool. What's going on? And their wall comes down. And so they're more open to receiving information. It's really powerful. It's also seen as selfless. If you're spending your time sharing some things that could help them and could get them better, they'll love you. It really positions you as an advisor. And in fact, MIT Sloan did a study on this, and it's probably not shocking to any of you, but they actually did a study in 2008 because before then, people weren't educating very much. Now, they've done this study that customer education increases trust significantly, and so we need to educate. Number 2 is it also establishes yourself as an authority. It makes you look like a thought leader. And you can also demonstrate your expertise by sharing some very particular shift within the industry. You've got the knowledge. They will see that. They will love you. Part of what gets them to connect with you, like we talked about before. You can also guide them your way. If you start sharing about something that's happening and they realize, oh man, we've got to make that shift, they're going to think that they need you. I got to have somebody help me through this. It's going to kind of scare them a little bit. So they realize I need help to make this happen. So those are 3 ways why we want to educate at this point within the sales process. But there's also other reasons why. First of all, it increases loyalty. The more educated the buyer is, there have been studies that show they're more likely to stick around. It also reduces complaints. If they know better, they're not going to complain once they become clients. So it's important. Now here's the secret with this. Don't educate them on your product or your service. That's not what we're talking about at this point. Instead, educate them on some shift that's happened within the industry or within culture overall, something that's going on. Okay. For example, for my company, Ringbot, which is a text-based solution, SMS, people use it to connect with clients and customers, and on their website, there's a little thing that they can text. It's really cool. But what we say is, hey, you know what? Email is taking a hit. We still use email. We like it, but the email open rates are going down lately. People are getting kind of inundated with emails. However, text open rates are quite a bit higher. Email open rates, 21%. If you send it to 1,000 people, about 200 people see it. Text open rates, 98%. You send out a text to 1,000 people, almost all of them see it. And so this is the big shift that's happening right now. And this is what we share with our buyers. And they're like, whoa, we need the text right now, which is right. They should, but they get it. It makes them realize I've got a shift. So figure out what a shift is that benefits your members or your clients if they make the transition in the shift, and you'll help them through that. Okay. Build a presentation around this. It's really important. So educate. It's a quick thing, 3 to 5 minutes. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but it's really powerful if you can do that right after your discovery and right before you get into your sales pitch, so to speak. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Andrew has a hand up. Is that a new question, Andrew, by the way? I just want to make sure.
Oh, no, sorry. I forgot to put it
Okay,
down.
cool. Any other questions on the educate phase? Nope. Okay, awesome. Let's get into the next phase then. Associate. So now is where we can connect the dots, make them realize, hey, this is why we're talking to this person. This is why we're talking to these people, right? It creates a powerful emotion when they said, I've got this problem, and now we can connect. We say, oh, that problem, we're great at solving it. Here is the exact way we've solved it over and over for many other people, right? They'll see this is problem, boom, solved. Okay. You want to make it obvious that you are the answer. And this is why, if you do this well, they won't really think about other competitors. They'll realize this is the one I need. And the way it works, if we look at the map of it, is we should take that associate and point back to discovery and what we learned from them, what we gained from them, as well as the stuff we talked about in educate and how they're shifting, right? How they kind of, how there's a shift within the industry or culture overall. The way to do this, by the way, 4 ways to do it. Have a very malleable sales call. And what this means is don't just have a script and you go through it the same way every time, but based on their pain points and their problems or even their goals that they're trying to accomplish, adjust it and really focus on those things. Talk about how you're going to solve this for them if that's their problem. If they talk about something different, don't dive into that too much. Don't cover that too much. Go into something else and really hit that. Okay. We also want to adjust for the role. If you're selling to somebody who's maybe a frontline marketer, or they kind of are the ones who are doing the thing, they will have a complete different feel of the needs and the goals of what they need than the CFO or the CEO, right? Totally different perspective of what's needed. And if we say the same thing to both, it's not going to work. So we have to adjust based on who we're talking to. So have a good understanding of that. Number 2 is refer back to your discovery sheet. I tell my clients, like, take notes in discovery. Now I say sheet because I'm old school, so I write stuff down, but actually a lot of people type it in. Whatever you do, refer back to that during your associate phase when you're pitching and say, oh, you talked about this. Remember you mentioned this? That was a struggle. Here's how we're going to solve that together. Okay. And you can go right into it. You also want to make sure that you understand which parts of your solution solve which pain points. Okay. So if they say, I've got this problem, no, here is exactly how we solve it. If we've got this problem, here's how we solve it. So make sure you understand this. And the big thing about this is, as you grow, make sure your team knows this. Too many times we just assume our team gets that, hey, here's how you solve this thing, or here's how this happens. And our salespeople are lost. This is why big companies suck at sales, because the further away you get from the initial salespeople, it gets harder and harder to keep them up to speed. Don't let that happen. Make sure salespeople are trained. They understand this solves this, this solves this. If they bring this up, you're saying this absolutely. Okay. And we also want to make sure we reinforce the points. Don't just say, hey, here's how we solve it. Here's this cool thing we do that you track your stats within Facebook, whatever. Make sure to remind them, hey, remember you said that you were struggling with seeing the results of your Facebook campaigns. You weren't quite sure how to look at that. Well, here's how we solve it. You're going to get a report every week. It's going to break down this, and you're going to see this. You're going to see this. We're going to detail it. We're going to show you why it's doing that. So reinforce the point. Call out the pain while you're here. If you can call it the pain, you're going to remind them of it. They get that emotion back. Like, that sucked. And you're like, well, watch how cool it is. They're like, whoa, that's cool. You just pulled the knife out. And they're going to love you. Okay. So we really need to associate and connect to whatever their problem is. That's associate. Does this all make sense, guys? Any questions on that part? It's really critical. So many times we kind of just have a process we go through and we just kind of explain, here's how our services work. And we do it and it just kind of gets old and the same thing. And for some people, they don't care because they just want to think about their issues.
Honestly, it makes selling a lot more fun too when we do it this way.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Matt, by the way, I'm loving it. The way you're presenting this is perfect.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for the feedback. All right. Well, if you guys have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, let's roll. Step number 4 is lead. By the way, when I work with my clients, this is the most scary phase. It's very scary to take charge. That's what I mean by lead. You're taking the lead. You're leading them down the path. And it is scary. And I can tell you, my education was in hospitality management. I went to a hotel school. I learned all about hospitality, and we were drilled, the customer is always right. That's actually wrong. The customer's not always right. Your prospects, when they come to you, they're not right. They don't go to Mike and say, hey, Mike, here's what we need to do. We need to solve this. We need to figure out this. And this is the way to do it. Just do it for us. Mike would probably be like, well, actually, you're way off there. Like, that's not the right way to handle that. Like, he's the expert, right? So too many times in a sales call, we feel like, oh, well, that's kind of what they want to do. Let me just try and force what we should do into that and see if that could work. Guess what? That's not going to work. Like, you're going to feel bad about it. It's not going to work for them. They're not going to get results. Instead, we say, actually, we've done this for quite a long time. We've seen the good. We've seen the bad. We know what works, what doesn't. Here's the process that I highly recommend. Be that guide. Be the consultant. Be their expert. And this is called being a challenger. It doesn't mean you're being a jerk, but you just kind of challenge their thinking and get them to rethink some of the things that they've thought and held true. This is, I have a lot of analogies, as you might have figured. This is my personal trainer analogy, okay? We just got through the holidays. And by the way, in December, I have no filter. Like, I am going to eat everything that I see. And my kids bring home these sweets that they got. I see this thing and this cake and this dessert, and I eat it all. So in December, I bulk up big, and not a good bulk up, okay? But then in January, I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out. So right now I'm in a serious shred. But if you go to a personal trainer, you don't go to a trainer and say, okay, here's what we're going to do today, trainer. I want to do some bench press. Then I'm going to do some lunges. Then I'm going to do some lifts over here. No, nobody does that. The trainer says, here's what we need to do to get to your goals, right? They should ask you, like, what are you trying to accomplish? Weight loss, strength, whatever. They tell you, do the same. They're coming to you because you're the expert. You know how to take care of somebody who's having these problems. So be that expert and guide them, okay? Now, did you know that 80% of deals, they're lost to no decision at all? So what that means is when you lose, not that you're going to lose 80%, but when you lose a deal, 80% of the time, they didn't go pick someone else. They didn't do anything. They took no action. And a lot of that is because we didn't take charge and guide them through the process and get them through each step right through closing. Okay, so control the conversation. In fact, prospects want you to take control. They want you to be the expert, even if it doesn't quite seem that obvious. Deep down, they want it, they need it. So with clear framing and guidance, you should be taking them right through, leading them. Press them when needed. Okay, I call it firm but friendly. And Close.io, this is a CRM system. They say it great. While prospects don't want to be strong-armed into a deal, neither do they want to work with unopinionated doormats. By the way, at the beginning, when I was making no sales, you saw all those little calendars. I was an unopinionated doormat. I figured out how to take charge. And that's what this is all about. So one of the ways to do this, you can explain the next steps and assume the sale. Don't say things like, well, if you start with us, we're going to do this. Say, when you get started, we're going to dive in. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Say definitive things, okay? Remember, they want to be led. So dive into the next steps. And I love how Thomas Phelps says it. It's long, but I'm going to read it to you. The wonderful thing about the assumptive closing technique is that it is very low pressure. Instead of trying to convince a prospect to do something, you assume that they want to and agree with moving forward. This only works if you've done your job thoroughly in each step and have the right to assume the sale. What that means is you can't do everything poorly and at the end be like, okay, you're going to get going, right? No, it won't work. But if you've done discovery well and you've really pulled out the pain and twisted the knife and you did educate and they love you and you associated your solution, at this point, they're like, yeah, of course, let's get started. Okay, so it's really critical that we do it right. That's the perfect deal process. Discover, educate, associate, and lead. It's really critical that we do this on our sales calls so we can close an insane amount of deals. Mike said it, our close rate is 83%. And by the way, if you want to go check me on Twitter, I just posted yesterday, I think that thread was, about some details on how we're doing that. So you can kind of follow that. If you want to track your own progress, that's one of the key ways to do this, by the way, is to make sure you're tracking your progress. You can't figure out what your close rate is unless you know how to do that. So I have a scorecard that I use to keep for my own stuff, and I decided to just share it. So if you want it, you can get it at fastgrowth.info/scorecard. Download that. It's free. Go grab that, and it's going to allow you to start tracking all of your agency metrics right there. Cool? Okay, I just threw a lot at you in a little bit of time. What questions do we have?